Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses. I'm still low, right? That's better. Or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So we're going to talk about who pays real estate transfer tax in New York. So first of all, let's understand what real estate transfer tax is. It's something that's specific to only certain states. In New York, anytime you transfer real property, you have to pay transfer tax. It's part of closing costs. Now, in a typical transaction, the seller is going to pay it. That's usually the case. But there are exceptions. So if you buy like a new construction property, it could be written into the guidelines. In fact, usually it's written into the guidelines that the buyer pays the transfer tax. Now, also, this is something that could be negotiated. So occasionally when I buy property from a seller, I'll tell them I'll cover the transfer tax. Now, how much is the transfer tax? I have a feeling this is going to be much shorter than I want it to be. So we're going to have to talk more about closing costs because I think the video is almost over now. We're only in it for a minute. And I really, according to the gurus who tell me how YouTube works, I should go for 10 minutes. Usually I have 10 minutes to talk about, but okay. Transfer tax is $4 per thousand. So I sell something for $100,000, it's $400. $200,000, $800. That's how much transfer tax is. So it's a relatively straightforward calculation. Now, it shouldn't be confused with other taxes you pay, of course, in New York. So in New York, you pay mortgage tax, which is like 1%, much more of the loan, right? So if I borrow $200,000, I got to pay $2,000 just in mortgage tax. And in New York City, it's almost 2%. So if I take a $200,000 loan in New York City in the 5 boroughs, I got to pay $4,000. That's mortgage tax, right? And this shouldn't be confused with property tax. So when you're a seller or a buyer, there is going to be an adjustment for property taxes made at the closing. So what that means is that property taxes don't get paid every day. They get paid semi-annually, so twice a year, or usually 4 times a year. So very often, if not almost every single time when you buy a house, there are taxes that have been prepaid. And in our lovely part of Long Island, we have multiple taxes. So it's not uncommon to have 3 taxes. We'll have a general tax, which is, let's say, the town tax. We'll have this is Nassau. We'll have a school tax, and then we'll have maybe a village tax or a local tax. So those things all get paid different times. So when you buy a house at day, whatever it is, let's say today, right? It's May 25th. There might be taxes that were paid earlier that the seller prepaid. So the seller gets a credit for any, in other words, the day of the closing, that's when the taxes get assessed. So very often there are very big changes. These are adjustments that are made. So let's say a seller paid the tax that was due 3 months ago, but you're closing 2 months into that. He's going to get a credit back for 1 month. And then there might be taxes that are due really quickly within 60 days, 90 days, depending on the title company, that the buyer is going to have to pay at the closing. So when I figure out closing costs, usually when I buy a property, I usually figure a round number of $10,000. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. It really depends. But if the taxes are higher, I might even go with $15,000. Because any taxes that are due very soon, the title company is going to want me to pay right at the closing. So even if they're not due yet, the title company will hold the money and pay it when it's due. Sometimes that can be a big payment. I mean, I bought something in Suffolk County recently. I think they paid, it was once a year. And I forgot what town it was. Brookhaven? I'm not sure where. So I had to write like a $10,000 check just for taxes, besides all the other closing costs. So there's a lot of closing costs. So I guess we're on the topic. We might as well talk about closing costs because people want to know what the hell closing costs are so high in New York about. So in general, the title charges are high in New York. Got to figure a few $1,000s just for title charges because we pay for departmentals and other searches. So you need a housing and building search. You need a patriot search. All these stupid searches. Those are hundreds of dollars of probably bullshit fees, but you want to know that stuff and you need to know that. The title search, the title insurance, you're going to pay a few $1,000s just in title. You're going to pay an attorney a few $1,000s in New York, right? This shocks other people in other places. And you got to understand that in places like North Carolina, your closing costs will be $400 for the whole deal. Here, you'll pay your attorney, 6 times that. So you have a few $1,000s for an attorney, a few $1,000s for title, and then you have any tax adjustments, so any taxes that are due. So it's very common for me to pay $10,000 in closing costs on a purchase. Very, very common. And that's without paying for a realtor. Then when I sell, it's very common for me to also have $10,000 in closing costs because I usually have a buyer. The buyer is usually represented by an agent. And he has to get 2%. So if I'm selling something for $400,000, that's already $8,000, right? And any taxes that are due as a seller that weren't paid, I have to pay for, right? Because whatever, I don't want to get into the whole thing. So it's very common when I buy a property that I'm going to have $10,000 closing costs on the buy and $10,000 closing costs on the sale. Sometimes I'll have more. So that's why I need a pretty big spread, right? People say, oh, you bought this house for 200, now you're selling for 300, you make $100,000. You're not, right? Because you have closing costs on the buy, closing costs on the sale, and you have holding costs. If you did work to it, you have construction costs. So those are some of the parts of the closing costs, right? When you sell, like I said, if you sell and you weren't paying taxes, right? Because let's be honest, most situations, if a regular, ordinary, normal retail buyer buys a house, they're going to probably, their lender is going to ask, if they take a mortgage, the lender is going to escrow for taxes and insurance. But if you take a hard money loan, they're not escrowing for taxes and insurance, so you're not going to pay taxes, right? So maybe you pay the first quarter when you bought it, but if you're selling it 9 months later, you got another 6 months of taxes or more, depending on multiple taxes that you got to pay. So very often I could have a $6,000-$7,000 tax bill when I sell too, in addition to the realtor's commission that I just told you. So I could have $20,000 in closing costs, right? But I don't figure the taxes as a closing cost as much as I figure it as a holding cost. So when I buy a property, I got to hold it. If I borrowed money, I got to pay interest. So I got to figure what my holding costs are per month, whatever my interest payment is that month. I got to figure what the taxes are that month, and then I got to figure in what the hell else am I talking about? Utilities, right? I got to keep the power on, the heat on. I got to pay for landscaping. Someone's got to cut the grass, or I get a ticket in the summer. I got to pay for snow removal if it snows in the winter. If something breaks, I got to fix it. That's just the way it is. So holding costs are not cheap in New York. So very often, even if I sell something really quickly, it's not uncommon for me to have $50,000 in costs. And I look at that as the day I close, I'm out that $50,000. Even if I find a buyer the next day, I have a property I bought, found the buyer the next day, I think I had $60,000 in costs on it. Now, I didn't sell it the next day because I had to wait, and he got a mortgage pretty fast, like in less than 2 months. But I have minimums with my lender, so I have to pay them 4 months interest. I had taxes up the yin yang. This was an expensive house. And I got closing costs up the gazoo also because I got to pay the buyer's agent on that one, and it was $60,000. It happens. That's just the way it is in New York. You have to understand that. That's why people call me all the time. They go, "Oh, I have this great deal. It's worth $425. I can buy $400." I go, "You can buy it, but you're going to lose money on it." They go, "What?" They don't understand. They don't understand. It's important for me to understand. Lawn maintenance warnings, John. I just got one today for a property in Lynbrook that I had the grass cut on Saturday, and then I noticed the notice was was on Friday. So hopefully we're okay. That's the kind of BS that you get in New York that you don't get at other places. So you have to be aware of the incredible expenses that you have when you close on something, which is one of the reasons why I love wholesaling more than a lot of other options. I can't. If I could wholesale every property that I come to, I would do it. But I can't. All right. Sometimes I have to pay more than another investor will pay. Sometimes there's an issue where I can't wholesale. It happens, almost half the time. So I would love to wholesale everything because I don't want to worry about that. I told this quick story. I have a friend in Kansas City, Kansas, Jason Dean, does a lot of business, 10, 15 deals a month. He wholesales everything. And one of his big buyers is somebody who just wholesales them. All that guy does is keep them and put them on the market. So I talked to Jason. I met him. He's part of my mastermind. Why don't you just wholesale them? And he's like, I don't want to own anything. And while I probably would not make that decision, I'd probably wholesale them myself. I completely understand what he's saying. I don't necessarily agree, but I understand. Because is he leaving money on the table? Yes. But if a meteor hits Kansas City, he's got no problems, right? If a meteor hits Long Island, I got to go look at all these houses and see which ones were damaged and start calling insurance people. I got to deal with that, right? It's May now. When the grass starts growing, I got to look at my list and say which properties I got to cut the grass. When it snows, I got to worry which properties I got to. It's a pain in the ass. It's something I don't like, right? I do it because it's part of my job, and hopefully one day I'll have somebody else to do it, so I don't have to deal with it. But that's how it works, right? You have to deal with these issues, and sometimes I can't get them cheap enough, or I have a situation where I just can't wholesale it. Happens, unfortunately, more than I'd like. But these incredible costs, I know we started with, didn't we start with transfer tax? Transfer tax is really a simple answer, right? It's $4 per thousand. Usually the seller pays, but sometimes it's negotiated, the buyer pays. That answers that question. Hopefully that's over with. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. If you are interested in how I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you are interested in coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. My course is available at howtoflipnewyork.com/course. And what else? Oh, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Whatever your platform you're watching on, please click like. The likes really help my search engine optimization. And please keep the comments coming. This came from a comment, and I go live 5 times a week, and I hope you understand that my brain is not always working so well, so I need topics. So keep the comments coming. If it's a simple question, I'll just answer it. If it's a topic I've covered before, I'll send you links to the video. And if it's something new or something I haven't covered in a while, then I'll do a video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks, John.